Shripadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Saraswate Deve Gaudavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudavani Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai,
Yeah.
Thakur Premanande. Jai. It's okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you guys for coming again to your own home. And Kala Prabhu, thank you for tuning in.
Happy to be here. Ready to hear.
Hare Krishna.
Jay. Very nice kirtan. Thank you.
Jai. Bo. So, greetings to all future viewers also. We're just diving into Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15, Text 18, correct?
17.
Oh.
Or 18.
I think you're right. Yeah, 17, sorry. 1:15, 17. So let's do our invocation and hope you have your seatbelts on. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Om Bhagavati Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Ridyantas Doya Bhadrani Vidhunati Saritsatam Nashtapraya Shvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavad Yutama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Hearing in a mood of gratitude for Srila Prabhupada. Diving into 115.17. Okay. So Jevrata Kumatinatmara Ishvaro me Yat Parapadmam Abhavaya Bhajanti Bhavya Mangshrantavah Marayoratino Bhuvistam Na Praharanyadanubhava Nirasta Chitta. It was by his mercy only that my enemies neglected to kill me when I descended from my chariot to get water for my thirsty horses. And it was due to my lack of esteem for my Lord that I dared engage him as my chariot driver, for he is worshipped and offered services by the best men to attain salvation. Purport. The Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the object of worship both by impersonalists and by the devotees of the Lord. The impersonalists worship his glowing effulgence, emanating from his transcendental body of eternal form, bliss, and knowledge. And the devotees worship him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who are below even the impersonalists consider him to be one of the great historical personalities. The Lord, however, descends to attract all by his specific transcendental pastimes, and thus he plays the part of the most perfect master, friend, son, and lover. His transcendental relation with Arjuna was in friendship, and the Lord therefore played the part perfectly, as he did with his parents, lovers, and wives. While playing in such a perfect transcendental relation, the devotee forgets, by the internal potency of the Lord, that his friend or son is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although sometimes the devotee is bewildered by the acts of the Lord. After the departure of the Lord, Arjuna was conscious of his great friend, but there is no mistake on the part of Arjuna, nor any ill estimation of the Lord. Intelligent men are attracted by the transcendental acting of the Lord with a pure, unalloyed devotee like Arjuna. In the war field, scarcity of water is a well-known fact. Water is very rare there, and both the animals and men working strenuously on the war field constantly require water to quench their thirst. Especially wounded soldiers and generals feel very thirsty at the time of death, and it sometimes so happens that simply for want of water one has to die unavoidably. But such scarcity of water was solved in the battle of Kurukshetra by means of boring the ground. By God's grace, water can be easily obtained from any place if there is facility for boring the ground. The modern system works on the same principle of boring the ground, but modern engineers are still unable to dig immediately wherever necessary. It appears, however, from the history as far back as the days of the Pandavas, that big generals like Arjuna could at once supply water even to the horses, and what to speak of men, by drawing water from underneath the hard ground simply by penetrating the stratum with a sharp arrow, a method still unknown to the modern scientists. Naraman yudada ruchira smita shobitani he partha he arjuna sukhe kuru nandaneti sanjalpitani naradeva hridis prashani smartur lutanti hridayam mama madhavasya. O king, his jokes and frank talks were pleasing and beautifully decorated with smiles. His addresses unto me as, O son of Prita, O friend, O son of the Kuru dynasty. All such heartiness are now remembered by me, and thus I am overwhelmed. Saya sanatana vikatana bhojana dishvaikyadvayasya ratapaniti vipralabda. Sakeva pacharattanayasya sarvam sehe mahan mahitaya kumateraghame. Generally, both of us used to live together and sleep, sit, and loiter together. And at the time of advertising oneself for acts of chivalry, Sometimes, if there were any irregularity, I used to reproach him by saying, "My friend, you are very truthful." Even in those hours when his value was minimized, he, being the Supreme Soul, used to tolerate all those utterings of mine, excusing me exactly as a true friend excuses his true friend, or a father excuses his son. Purport. Since the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna is all perfect, his transcendental pastimes with his pure devotees never lack anything in any respect, either as a friend, son, or lover. The Lord relishes the reproaches of friends, parents, or fiancés more than the Vedic hymns offered to him by great learned scholars and religionists in an official fashion. My spiritual master lived in Govardhan for many years, and he was responsible for overseeing the refurbishing of the Bhaktivedanta ashram, which was basically used to be like a small, it's more like a fortress of a king from the 15th century. Anyway, it's a big job, but he had to, get some help, go through the government, do the government stuff in the city, and I think he told me that he had to go and have dinner at the home of some maybe like the mayor or some local person like Braj Basi, and basically he told me that whenever they made the offering, they went and they had Krishna, and they put the plate, and basically they just put the plate. The ritual was put the plate there, and then they would go, "All right, now eat, eat." That's it.
So I think they have some special relation.
Yeah, but in the mood of like this purport, in that relationship of like a kid, like, okay, now eat your dinner, And I thought that was kind of relevant to the purport. Krishna prefers his pure devotees to not remember him as
Supreme.
God, but just him for who he is. Isn't that amazing? That's mind-boggling. And then it makes, at least makes me think, like, analyze our own relationship with Krishna just for who Krishna is, not because he's God. Like, I'm trying to connect with God, but just like Krishna for Krishna. Just kind of brings it to a different level, a little bit. It's nice. Okay, text 20. Soham narpendra rahata purushottamena sakya priyena suhrada hridayena sunya advanjaru krama parigraham angarakshan gopira sadbhir abhaleva vinirjitosmi. O Emperor, now I am separated from my friend and dearmost well-wisher, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore my heart appears to be void of everything. In his absence I have been defeated by a number of infidel cowherd men while I was guarding the bodies of all the wives of Krishna. Purport. The important point in this verse is how it was possible that Arjuna could be defeated by a gang of ignoble cowherd men, and how such mundane cowherd men could touch the bodies of the wives of Lord Krishna, who were under the protection of Arjuna. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has justified the contradiction by research in the Vishnu Purana and Brahma Purana. In these Puranas it is said that once the fair denizens of heaven pleased Astavakra Muni by their service and were blessed by the Muni to have the Supreme Lord as their husband. Astavakra Muni was curved in 8 joints of his body, and thus he used to move in a peculiar curved manner. The daughters of the demigods could not check their laughter upon seeing the movements of the Muni, and the Muni, being angry at them, cursed them that they would be kidnapped by rogues, even if they would get the Lord as their husband. Later on, the girls satisfied the Muni by their prayers, and the Muni blessed them that they would regain their husband even after being robbed by the rogues. So, in order to keep the words of the great Muni, the Lord himself kidnapped his wives from the protection of Arjuna. Otherwise, they would have at once vanished from the scene as soon as they were touched by the rogues. Besides that, some of the gopis who prayed to become wives of the Lord returned to their respective positions after their desire was fulfilled. After the departure of Lord Krishna, he wanted all his entourage back to Godhead, and they were called back under different conditions only. Tadvai dhanushta ishava sarato hayaste soham rati nrpatayo yata anamanti sarvam kshanena tarabhura sat ishariktam basman hutam kuhakaradham avoptam ushyam. I have the very same Gandiva bow, the same arrows, the same chariot drawn by the same horses, and I use them as the same Arjuna to whom all the kings offered their due respects. But in the absence of Lord Krishna, all of them, at a moment's notice, have become null and void. It is exactly like offering clarified butter on ashes, accumulating money with a magic wand, or sowing seeds on barren land.
Accumulating money with a magic wand.
Purport. As we have discussed more than once, one should not be puffed up by borrowed plumes. All energies and powers are derived from the Supreme Source, Lord Krishna, and they act as long as he desires and cease to function as soon as he withdraws. All electrical energies are received from the powerhouse, and as soon as the powerhouse stops supplying energy, the bulbs are of no use. In a moment's time, such energies can be generated or withdrawn by the supreme will of the Lord. Material civilization without the blessing of the Lord is child's play only. As long as the parents allow the child to play, it is all right. As soon as the parents withdraw, the child has to stop. Human civilization and all activities thereof must be dovetailed with the supreme blessing of the Lord. And without this blessing, all advancement of human civilization is like decoration on a dead body. It is said here that a dead civilization and its activities are something like clarified butter on ashes, the accumulation of money by a magic wand, and the sowing of seeds in a barren land. Prajang swayanu prashtanam suhradam na sahritpure viprasapa vimudanam nignatam mushtibir mitaha paranim madaram pitva madonmatita chetasam ajanatam vanyanyam sattu pancha vaseshataha. O king, since you have asked me about our friends and relatives in the city of Dwarka, I will inform you that all of them were cursed by the Brahmanas, and as a result they all became intoxicated with wine made from putrefied rice, and fought amongst themselves with sticks, not even recognizing one another. Now all but 4 or 5 of them are dead and gone. Prayenaita Bhagavata Ishvarasya Vacheshtitam Mitanignandi Bhutani Bhavayanti Jayanmitaha. Factually, this is all due to the supreme will of the Lord, the personality of Godhead. Sometimes people kill one another, and at other times they protect one another. Purport. According to the anthropologists, there is nature's law of struggle for existence and survival of the fittest. But they do not know that behind the law of nature is the supreme direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is confirmed that the law of nature is executed under the direction of the Lord. Whenever, therefore, there is peace in the world, it must be known that it is due to the good will of the Lord. And whenever there is upheaval in the world, it is also due to the supreme will of the Lord. Not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Lord. Whenever, therefore, there is disobedience of the established rules enacted by the Lord, there is war between men and nations. The surest way to the path of peace, therefore, is dovetailing everything to the established rule of the Lord. The established rule is that whatever we do, whatever we eat, whatever we sacrifice, or whatever we give in charity must be done to the full satisfaction of the Lord. No one should do anything, eat anything, sacrifice anything, or give anything in charity against the will of the Lord. Discretion is the better part of valor, and one must learn how to discriminate between actions which may be pleasing to the Lord and those which may not be pleasing to the Lord. An action is thus judged by the Lord's pleasure or displeasure. There is no room for personal whims. We must always be guided by the pleasure of the Lord. Such action is called yoga karamashu koshalam, or actions performed which are linked with the Supreme Lord. That is the art of doing a thing perfectly.
I have a question for Boo. It says discretion is the better part of valor, and one must learn how to discriminate between actions which may be pleasing to the Lord and those which may not be pleasing to the Lord. An action is thus judged by the Lord's pleasure or displeasure.
If we can we look up the definition of valor?
Yeah.
Actually, I was thinking, that actually struck me, we read it too. And I was thinking it'd be nice to go deeper into that, but Krishna inspired you to ask that, to make us do it, because otherwise I wouldn't have said anything.
Strength of mind in regard to danger, a brave man, a man of valor, courage, prowess, value, or worth.
I mean, so you basically asked me what that means?
No. I'm asking, as a devotee, how do you discern the Lord's pleasure and displeasure?
Well, I think that question may have like different levels of answers. You know, like on one level, you know, some basic level, you know, Shastra. You know, like our checks and balance system is Guru Sadhu Shastra. So that's kind of like a all-encompassing answer. But you know, certain things are in Shastra, and like instructions on how to live in particular ways and what to do in some circumstances and stuff. But then we'll come into so many nuanced circumstances that may not be so clear how to apply, you know, what's in the Shastra. You know, like Prabhupada said, we have the principles and then the details, and oftentimes the details change. Like, for example, you know, like Vaishnav dress or Karmi dress or whatever, that kind of thing is like, as far as I understand, is more considered to be like a detail.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's not really such a big deal which one you choose to wear. But if you're going on the altar, you know, you're going to wear, you know, devotional clothing, I guess you could say. But, you know, maybe like shirt and pants for a particular preaching event is also devotional clothing, or whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yeah. So yeah, normally it's just Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. You can, you know, ask your friend who may be, you know, someone who you trust their judgment in devotional service. You know, senior devotees, and you know, sometimes we just have to like use our intelligence, and you know, if we keep going hearing also, yeah, most circumstances, or that if we're faced with a decision, it may be kind of like not that hard to, you know, this one is kind of, you know, might be generally pretty obvious, you know, which one would be more in favorable to devotional service or not, but
Right.
there's certainly circumstances that are not so
Yeah.
obvious.
Yeah, like which like mode is it? Like, which is it the mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance? Like, you want to be more like in the mode of goodness, and then also how much Krishna kind of like reveals himself to you, and like what is a good gauge of how pleased he is. I just made this up. It's like another answer. It's like, yeah, if you're constantly like being revealed different Krishna conscious like revelations, I see that as Krishna is like pleased with you and wants to be around you more. And the more you see Krishna, the more you like are aware of Krishna in your day-to-day life. It's probably
Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam inamamupayandite. Yeah. Those who are constantly devoted and serving me with love, I give them the intelligence by which they can come to me. Yeah. And he also reciprocates so many ways. That is true. Yeah. Krishna, he's the Lord within and without. Yeah. That is true.
yeah, he'll just leave your life if he's displeased.
But, you know, clearly we're not meant to do it on our own and by Krishna's system. You know, so we can like if we're just on our own, how can we tell the difference between, okay, like Krishna's giving me direct transmissions right now and or like the mind? Yeah. Because we might really think and really feel like you know, Krishna's telling me something, but we can actually dupe ourselves into actually really believing that because of the way it feels and the way it appears.
Yeah, I'm mostly thinking how much of a taste we have. Like, when Krishna's pleased, I feel like he'll give you more of a taste of like Krishna consciousness. And if he's displeased, you'll just be like on your own, kind of like struggling, without like struggling to catch a taste. Not saying that if you're struggling to catch a taste of Krishna consciousness, Krishna is completely displeased with you, but if he is pleased with you, I assume he's going to give you like more and more of a taste to come to him because he wants you more and more, or he's happy to be around you more and more. It's their decision.
Yeah, I think that's also relative to the individual because, you know, like sometimes when we're practicing, sometimes externally it might look like we're going like off the deep end or some other direction, but actually progress is being made, and you know, like we can't know just based on like feeling by ourselves. You know, Prabhupada did say, like, you know, someone asked him, like, how do you know if the process is working? And he said, you know, like, just like when a hungry man is eating food and he feels satisfied. So that's also there. But it's, you know, I'm just adding to the point of that's also complemented by basically association with devotees and, you know, like, sometimes, I mean, just from my own experience, sometimes I think I'm like doing something pretty good, and then you know, it takes I have to go into the association of the devotees for it to be revealed, like, oh, actually I've been like subtly doing this thing the whole time that I couldn't see, you know. So that's also there.
Yep. We have to learn how to discriminate between the actions.
Yeah, and you know, I know it's in Vaisheshika Prabhu's introduction to his Our Family Business, and it's quoting Prabhupada. I don't know where the quote exactly is from, but basically Prabhupada said, you know, we are training people to become independently thoughtful in Krishna consciousness. So, and then, you know, the whole ashram system. You know, sannyas is supposed to be Basically, it's supposed to be a progressive system to become more independent spiritually, basically. To develop the adhikar and the ability to, be fully Krishna conscious and not even give it to others. So, very nice. Any other points? Krishna.
Thank you.
Krishna. Text 25 and 26. Jakasam jali yadvan mahanta dantyani yasaha Dabalan balina rajan mahanta balina mitaha Evam balishjar yadubir mahadbir itaran vibu Yadun yadubir anyanyam bubaran sanjaharaha. O king, as in the ocean the bigger and stronger aquatics swallow up the smaller and weaker ones, so also the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to lighten the burden of the earth, has engaged the stronger Yadu to kill the weaker, and the bigger Yadu to kill the smaller. Purport. In the material world, the struggle for existence and survival of the fittest are laws, because in the material world there is disparity between conditioned souls due to everyone's desire to lord it over the material resources. This very mentality of lording it over the material nature is the root cause of conditioned life. And to give facility to such imitation lords, the illusory energy of the Lord has created a disparity between conditioned living beings by creating the stronger and the weaker in every species of life. The mentality of lording it over the material nature and the creation has naturally created a disparity, and therefore the law of struggle for existence. In the spiritual world there is no such disparity, nor is there such a struggle for existence. In the spiritual world there is no struggle for existence, because everyone there exists eternally. There is no disparity because everyone wants to render service to the Supreme Lord, and no one wants to imitate the Lord in becoming the beneficiary. The Lord, being creator of everything, including the living beings, factually is the proprietor and enjoyer of everything that be. But in the material world, by the spell of Maya, or illusion, this eternal relation with the Supreme Personality of Godhead is forgotten, and so the living being is conditioned under the law of struggle for existence and survival of the fittest. Deshakalarta yuktani hrittapo pashamani cha haranti smaratas chitam govinda bihitani me. Now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the Personality of Godhead, Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. Purport. Herein, Arjuna refers to the instruction of the Bhagavad Gita, which was imparted to him by the Lord on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The Lord left behind him the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, not for the benefit of Arjuna alone, but also for all time and in all lands. The Bhagavad Gita, being spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the essence of all Vedic wisdom. It is nicely presented by the Lord himself for all who have very little time to go through the vast Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Puranas, and Vedanta Sutras. It is put within the study of the great historical epic Mahabharata, which was especially prepared for the less intelligent class, namely the women, the laborers, and those who are worthless descendants of the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and higher sections of the Vaishyas. The problem which arose in the heart of Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra was solved by the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. Again, after the departure of the Lord from the vision of earthly people, when Arjuna was face to face with being vanquished in his acquired power and prominence, he wanted again to remember the great teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, just to teach all concerned that the Bhagavad Gita can be consulted in all critical times, not only for solace from all kinds of mental agonies, but also for the way out of great entanglements which may embarrass one in some critical hour. The merciful Lord left behind him the great teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, so that one can take the instructions of the Lord even when he is not visible to material eyesight. Material senses cannot have any estimation of the Supreme Lord, but by his inconceivable power, the Lord can incarnate himself to the sense perception of the conditioned souls in a suitable manner through the agency of matter, which is also another form of the Lord's manifested energy. Thus, the Bhagavad Gita, or any authentic scriptural sound representation of the Lord, is also the incarnation of the Lord. There is no difference between the sound representation of the Lord and the Lord himself. One can derive the same benefit from the Bhagavad Gita as Arjuna did in the personal presence of the Lord. The faithful human being who is desirous of being liberated from the clutches of material existence can very easily take advantage of the Bhagavad Gita, and with this in view, the Lord instructed Arjuna as if Arjuna were in need of it. In the Bhagavad Gita, 5 important factors of knowledge have been delineated pertaining to the Supreme Lord, the living being, nature, time and space, and the process of activity. Out of these, the Supreme Lord and the living being are qualitatively one. The difference between the two has been analyzed as the difference between the whole and the part and parcel. Nature is inert matter displaying the interaction of the 3 different modes, and eternal time and unlimited space are considered to be beyond the existence of the material nature. Activities of the living being are different varieties of aptitudes which can entrap or liberate the living being within and without material nature. All these subject matters are concisely discussed in the Bhagavad Gita, and later the subject matters are elaborated in the Srimad Bhagavatam for further enlightenment. Out of the 5 subjects, the Supreme Lord, the living entity, nature and time and space are eternal, but the living entity, nature and time are under the direction of the Supreme Lord, who is absolute and completely independent of any other control. The Supreme Lord is the Supreme Controller. The material activity of the living being is beginningless, but it can be rectified by transferal into the spiritual quality. Thus it can cease its material qualitative reactions. Both the Lord and the living entity are cognizant, and both have the sense of identification, of being conscious as a living force. But the living being under the condition of material nature called Mahat Tattva misidentifies himself as being different from the Lord. The whole scheme of Vedic wisdom is targeted to the aim of eradicating such a misconception and thus liberating the living being from the illusion of material identification. When such an illusion is eradicated by knowledge and renunciation, the living beings are responsible actors and enjoyers also. The sense of enjoyment in the Lord is real, but such a sense in the living being is a sort of wishful desire only. This difference in consciousness is the distinction of the 2 identities, namely the Lord and the living being. Otherwise, there is no difference between the Lord and the living being. The living being is therefore eternally one and different simultaneously. The whole instruction of the Bhagavad Gita stands on this principle. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord and the living beings are both described as Sanatana, or eternal, and the Lord's abode, far beyond the material sky, is also described as Sanatana. The living being is invited to live in the Sanatana existence of the Lord, and the process which can help a living being to approach the Lord's abode, where the liberated activity of the soul is exhibited, is called Sanatana Dharma. One cannot, however, reach the eternal abode of the Lord without being free from the misconception of material identification. And the Bhagavad Gita gives us the clue how to achieve this stage of perfection. The process of being liberated from the misconception of material identification is called in different stages: fruitive activity, empiric philosophy, and devotional service, up to transcendental realization. Such transcendental realization is made possible by dovetailing all the above items in relation with the Lord. Prescribed duties of the human being, as directed in the Vedas, can gradually purify the sinful mind of the conditioned soul and raise him to the stage of knowledge. The purified stage of acquiring knowledge becomes the basis of devotional service to the Lord. As long as one is engaged in researching the solution of the problems of life, his knowledge is called jnana, or purified knowledge. But on realizing the actual solution of life, one becomes situated in the devotional service of the Lord. The Bhagavad Gita begins with the problems of life by discriminating the soul from the elements of matter, and proves by all reason and argument that the soul is indestructible in all circumstances, and that the outer covering of matter, the body and the mind, change for another term of material existence which is full of miseries. The Bhagavad Gita is therefore meant for terminating all different types of miseries, and Arjuna took shelter of this great knowledge which had been imparted to him during the Kurukshetra battle. Pretty much stopping time, but I feel like probably nobody wants to stop right now.
The next one starts with Sutu Vacha.
Cool.
I'm interested.
Oh, gotta keep going then. Text 28. Sutu Vacha. Evam chintayato jishno Krishnapada sororuham sahardenati gadena santasid vimalamatihi. Sutta Goswami said, thus being deeply absorbed in thinking of the instructions of the Lord, which were imparted in the great intimacy of friendship, and in thinking of his lotus feet, Arjuna's mind became pacified and free from all material contamination. Purport. Since the Lord is absolute, deep meditation upon him is as good as yogic trance. The Lord is non-different from his name, form, quality, pastimes, entourage, and specific actions. Arjuna began to think of the Lord's instructions to him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Only those instructions began to eliminate the tinges of material contamination in the mind of Arjuna. The Lord is like the sun. The sun's appearance means immediate dissipation of darkness or ignorance. And the Lord's appearance within the mind of the devotee can at once drive away the miserable material effects. Lord Chaitanya has therefore recommended constant chanting of the name of the Lord for protection from all contamination of the material world. The feeling of separation from the Lord is undoubtedly painful to the devotee, but because it is in connection with the Lord, it has a specific transcendental effect which pacifies the heart. Feelings of separation are also sources of transcendental bliss, and they are never comparable to contaminated material feelings of separation.
Oh. Never even comparable. Very interesting.
Not even. Vasudevam Hriyanudhyana Paribrahmhitaram Hasa Bhaktiniramatita Shesha Kushaya Rishanarjunaha. Arjuna's constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna rapidly increased his devotion, and as a result, all the trash in his thoughts subsided. Purport. Material desires in the mind are the trash of material contamination. By such contamination, the living being is faced with so many compatible and incompatible things that discourage the very existence of spiritual identity. Birth after birth, the conditioned soul is entrapped with so many pleasing and displeasing elements, which are all false and temporary. They accumulate due to our reactions to material desires. But when we get in touch with the transcendental Lord and his variegated energies by devotional service, the naked forms of all material desires become manifest, and the intelligence of the living being is pacified in its true color. As soon as Arjuna turned his attention towards the instructions of the Lord, as they are inculcated in the Bhagavad Gita, his true color of eternal association with the Lord became manifest, and thus he felt freed from all material contaminations. Yeah.
Juicy purple.
Yes. Busting at the seams, if you will. Gitam Bhagavata Jnanam Yattat Sangrama Murdhani Kalakarma Tamodudham Punaradiya Gamat Prabhu. Because of the Lord's pastimes and activities, and because of his absence, it appeared that Arjuna forgot the instructions left by the personality of Godhead. But factually, this was not the case, and again he became lord of his senses. Purport. A conditioned soul is enwrapped in his fruitive activities by the force of eternal time. But the Supreme Lord, when he incarnates on the earth, is not influenced by Kala or the material conception of past, present, and future. The activities of the Lord are eternal, and they are manifestations of his Atma Maya, or internal potency. All pastimes or activities of the Lord are spiritual in nature, but to the layman, they appear to be on the same level with material activities. It so appeared that Arjuna and the Lord were engaged in the battle of Kurukshetra as the other party was also engaged. But factually, the Lord was executing his mission of incarnation and association with his eternal friend Arjuna. Therefore, such apparently material activities of Arjuna did not drive him away from his transcendental position, but on the contrary, revived his consciousness of the songs of the Lord as he sang them personally. This revival of consciousness is assured by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita 1865 as follows. Manmana bhava madbhakta madhyajimam namaskuru mame vaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. One should think of the Lord always. The mind should not forget him. One should become a devotee of the Lord and offer obeisances unto him. One who lives in that fashion becomes undoubtedly endowed with the blessing of the Lord by achieving the shelter of his lotus feet. There is nothing to doubt about this eternal truth. Because Arjuna was his confidential friend, the secret was disclosed to him. Arjuna had no desire to fight with his relatives, but he fought for the mission of the Lord. He was always engaged in the execution of his mission only. And therefore, after the Lord's departure, he remained in the same transcendental position, even though it appeared that he forgot all the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita. One should, therefore, adjust the activities of life in pace with the mission of the Lord. And by doing this, one is sure to return back home, back to Godhead. This is the highest perfection of life.
I have a question similar to my last one.
Okay.
He says, one should therefore adjust the activities of life in pace with the mission of the Lord. What is the mission of the Lord?
Chaito darpanam arjanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam shreya kairavachandrika vitaranam vijavadhu jivanam anandam buddhivardhanam pratipadam purnam mrittaswaranam sarvatma snapanam padam vijayate Shri Krishna sankirtanam. Basically, the immediate response that came to my mind is, basically, Srila Prabhupada has established ISKCON, which is serving his Guru Maharaj, which is serving up, the Parampara, the Acharyas, ultimately to Lord Chaitanya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who only left those 8 prayers in writing and nothing else, as far as I know. Although he did, he gave the Shivastakam to, was it Damodar Swarup? Swarup Damodar wrote it down, but actually Lord Chaitanya gave it. Anyway, he only wrote the Shikshastakam. So, we take that as arguably the most important thing of his instructions. And, the Sankirtan movement is the mission of the Lord, basically. Be a devotee, make a devotee. Whatever that means. You live in a temple, you can wander around the roads. You could just be chanting Hare Krishna, trying to give Krishna others in all sincerity. Krishna will guide us.
Very nice.
I tried to tailor it to an answer maybe you would like.
Oh, good. What was that quote you initially answered with?
That's the first verse of the Shikshastakam. All glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the dust accumulated for years. I can't remember all of it right now. And extinguishes the fire of repeated birth and death. Maybe you know it better than me right now.
Oh no. Translations I don't remember.
Oh.
I only remember
Yeah, it cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the blazing fire of repeated birth and death. The Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge and increases... Oh, I'm missing something. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. I can't remember. Increases the nectar for which we are always anxious. I butchered it a little bit. It should be maybe one of these. Wait a minute. It's in the introduction of Srimad Bhagavatam. I'll read it directly so as to not speculate. Well, wouldn't you know? Yeah, glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. Krishna, 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 Krishna.
Creation. Very nice, Prabhu. Thank you.
Jay. If Casey's please, Tom please. If Casey's please, I know Krishna's please. Alright. Sorry, where were we? 30? Yes. Kitam Bhagavata Jnanam Yatat Sangrama Murdini Kalakarma Tamorudham Punaragyagamat Prabhu. No, it was
I think we did
31. Yeah,
31.
sorry. I just want to hear that one again. Vishaka Brahmasampatya Sajana Dvaita Samshaya Lina Prakriti Nargunyada Lingatwara Sambhavaha. Because of his possessing spiritual assets, the doubts of duality were completely cut off. Thus he was freed from the three modes of material nature and placed in transcendence. There was no longer any chance of his becoming entangled in birth and death, for he was freed from material form. Purport. Doubts of duality begin from the misconception of the material body, which is accepted as the self by less intelligent persons. The most foolish part of our ignorance is our identifying this material body with the self. Everything in relation with the body is ignorantly accepted as our own. Doubts due to misconceptions of myself and mine, in other words, my body, my relatives, my property, my wife, my children, my wealth, my country, my community, and hundreds and thousands of similar illusory contemplations cause bewilderment for the conditioned soul. By assimilating the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, one is sure to be released from such bewilderment because real knowledge is knowledge that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, Lord Krishna, is everything, including one's self. Everything is a manifestation of his potency as part and parcel. The potency and the potent are non-different. So the conception of duality is at once mitigated by attainment of perfect knowledge. As soon as Arjuna took up the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, expert as he was, he could at once eradicate the material conception of Lord Krishna, his eternal friend. He could realize that the Lord was still present before him by his instruction, by his form, by his pastimes, by his qualities, and everything else related to him. He could realize that Lord Krishna, his friend, was still present before him by his transcendental presence in different non-dual energies. And there was no question of attainment of the association of the Lord by another change of body under the influence of time and space. By attainment of absolute knowledge, one can be in association with the Lord constantly, even in this present life, simply by hearing, chanting, thinking of, and worshiping the Supreme Lord. One can see him, one can feel his presence, even in the present life, simply by understanding the Advaya Gyan Lord, or the Absolute Lord. through the process of devotional service, which begins with hearing about him. Lord Chaitanya says that simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one can at once wash off the dust on the mirror of pure consciousness. And as soon as the dust is removed, one is at once freed from all material conditions. That was the verse we just quoted. That's pretty far out. To become free from material conditions means to liberate the soul. As soon as one is, therefore, situated in absolute knowledge, his material conception of life is removed, or he emerges from a false conception of life. Thus, the function of the pure soul is revived in spiritual realization. This practical realization of the living being is made possible due to his becoming free from the reaction of the three modes of material nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. By the grace of the Lord, a pure devotee is at once raised to the place of the Absolute, and there is no chance of the devotees becoming materially entangled again in conditioned life. One is not able to feel the presence of the Lord in all circumstances until one is endowed with the required transcendental vision made possible by devotional service prescribed in the revealed scriptures. Arjuna had attained this stage long before on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and when he apparently felt the absence of the Lord, he at once took shelter of the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, and thus again he was placed in his original position. This is the position of Vishok, or the stage of being freed from all grief and anxieties. Krishna, Krishna. And maybe just one more. Nishamya Bhagavan Margam Sangstam Yadukulasya Cha Swapataya Matim Chakre Nibrittatma Yudhishthiraha. Upon hearing of Lord Krishna's returning to his abode and upon understanding the end of the Yadu dynasty's earthly manifestation, Maharaj Yudhisthira decided to go back home, back to Godhead. Purport. Maharaj Yudhisthira also turned his attention to the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita after hearing about the Lord's departure from the vision of earthly people. He began to deliberate on the Lord's way of appearance and departure. The mission of the Lord's appearance and disappearance in the mortal universe is completely dependent on his supreme will. He is not forced to appear or disappear by any superior energy, as the living beings appear and disappear, being forced by the laws of nature. Whenever the Lord likes, he can appear himself from anywhere and everywhere without disturbing his appearance or disappearance in any other place. He's like the sun. The sun appears and disappears on its own accord at any place without disturbing its presence in other places. The sun appears in the morning in India without disappearing from the Western Hemisphere. The sun is present everywhere and anywhere all over the solar system. But it so appears that in a particular place the sun appears in the morning and also disappears at some fixed time in the evening. The time limitation even of the sun is of no concern, and so what to speak of the Supreme Lord who is the creator and controller of the sun? Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita it is stated that anyone who factually understands the transcendental appearance and disappearance of the Lord by his inconceivable energy becomes liberated from the laws of birth and death and is placed in the eternal spiritual sky where the Vaikuntha planets are. There, such liberated persons can eternally live without the pangs of birth, death, old age, and disease. In the spiritual sky, the Lord and those who are eternally engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord are all eternally young, because there is no old age and disease, and there is no death. Because there is no death, there is no birth. It is concluded, therefore, that simply by understanding the Lord's appearance and disappearance in truth, one can attain the perfectional stage of eternal life. Therefore, Maharaj Yudhisthira also began to consider going back to Godhead. The Lord appears on the earth or any other mortal planet along with his associates who live with him eternally. And the members of the Yadu family who were engaged in supplementing the pastimes of the Lord are no other than his eternal associates. And so also Maharaj Yudhisthira and his brothers and mother and so on. So, since the appearance and disappearance of the Lord and his eternal associates are transcendental, One should not be bewildered by the external features of appearance and disappearance. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. We can still have discussion points though. Any doubts? Any doubts in Krishna consciousness?
I have a question about what we're reading in like the storyline event. Did Krishna leave on the battlefield of Kurukshetra?
No.
Okay.
I think actually it may be explained soon
Cool.
in detail.
Yeah, that's nice.
Let's see what the next chapter is. How Parikshit received the age of Kali. I think we're gonna hear about it. Yeah, I don't know exactly how long after the Battle of Kurukshetra though. No, he after the Battle of Kurukshetra, we heard it. He first went to Hastinapur and stayed there for I think like 2 or 3 months or something, and then he went back to Dwarka. Remember all the
He lived
pomp?
for 125 years.
Sorry.
Lord Sri Krishna lived for 125 years. Right?
Yeah, something like that.
Something.
Remember all the pomp and gaiety?
In Dwarka?
Yeah. Well, when he was leaving Hastinapur and when he was arriving in Dwarka. Both were similar events. Yeah. Remember in Dwarka, they cleaned all, remember they cleaned all the streets with fragrant water and, and everyone decorated their doors and windows with auspicious things like fruits and grasses, leaves, stuff like that. And what a scene it was. Peacocks were cawing.
All the
Swans.
women gathered on the,
Yeah.
I don't know, balcony, I guess.
And the descriptions
Yeah.
of, sorry,
They're looking at it.
yeah, up on top. And, in Dwarka, there were like parks scattered throughout. So it was almost like there were trees throughout the city all over the place. So it was also like a beautiful park and lakes and swans and pious trees of fragrant flowers and fruits and so on. Yeah, that was a nice section.
I find it interesting that Arjuna, when Yudhishthira Maharaj asked him like how he started it, like what happened to you and then all the ill symptoms which he saw. So Arjuna was very sad, of course, initially. But then as he went on describing Lord, and I mean he by himself concluded that oh now I'm fixing my attention upon him and now I'm not scared anymore and it's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Simply by just repeating the past tense he immediately by himself, fixed his mind upon Lord.
Yeah, and this is also a common experience of like revealing the mind and confidence and devotees hearing confidentially. And sometimes all you need is just to express it to somebody, then it helps process it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty amazing how that works. Ecology, you want to share anything?
Hare Krishna.
Hari.
Yeah, Hari Hari.
Oh.
Nice reading. Nice to hear from everyone here. And don't have an exact point, but I know that we were stating about Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, and that these applications are basically ways of association, and devotee association is so important too. In general, being able to give and receive, and so having these pillars, so to speak, help build our ability of the gyan being passed down through disciplic succession, the gyan being transferred through subtle association. So that also is very important in my eyes, just as much as anyone seeking genuinely in their heart to practice bhakti. So that was about all I have to share about the association is so key, in that is without the shastra, without the gurus, without sadhu, our presence, just trying to pursue one thing on our own would be very limiting. So it's a support.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Prabhuji. It's not that, um, it doesn't invalidate yogis and practitioners and mystics and things, because um, you know we can obtain a level, Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti Shabdite, Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan realization. One can just by meditating on one's own, actually fully develop Paramatma realization, which is it's a transcendental realization. It's not like, oh, if you're just by yourself, then you're just nonsense. You know, you can tap in to transcendental energy, uh, by meditation. But generally, that's not the way that Krishna reveals himself personally. And so it really depends on our goal. If our goal is pure devotion for Krishna, Krishna gives the system to obtain that goal, or so if we have a different goal, then that system may not appeal to us. We can get into the philosophy. Srila Prabhupada is promoting devotional service, pure devotional service to Krishna as the basically highest form of love of God. But actually, most people don't want to love God. They want to feel big and smart and powerful, and they want to be God mostly. And it's easy to get confused philosophically sometimes. Maybe people, they don't take the time to really hear and try to understand, and things can get jumbled up and confusing. But the way Prabhupada teaches is, I mean, if anybody can present a better presentation, I'd like to hear it, because I don't think it's out there. As far as it's a particular mood, philosophically, just the mood, and it's a very specific flavor of transcendental realization, devotional service to Krishna, or Krishna. So anyway, I'm just adding some thoughts. Sometimes, like the way sometimes people hear Prabhupada's books, and even devotees, they like misunderstand, because Prabhupada speaks strongly in certain times and certain places to emphasize certain points, and sometimes they miss that in another section that he will strongly emphasize, like literally a way that looks contradictory to the other point he made, and people will see a strong point, and then we tend to like take it another little step further to where we start becoming offensive to others, or like, just, at least I've seen, like, we've become fanatical often, a lot of times, and that's just not Prabhupada's mood, not to be fanatical, but at the same time, if we read Prabhupada's books and hear it in a mood of like, you know, how much like communication can get lost in text if you ever texted somebody. I text somebody and say, "Hey, what time are we supposed to go to that thing today?" And they're gonna be like, "Hey, why are you so mad at me?" I'm like, "I'm not mad at you." Like, but they read it like, "Hey, what?" We like, they interpret it in so many ways, and so much communication is lost. So like if we hear like Prabhupada's books with the conviction that like Prabhupada is a kind well-wisher, and he's trying to like help, like just teach us, not like put us down. People hear certain things and their false ego gets disturbed, like, oh, whatever, anybody, I could read this and say, oh, I'm a Malecha, like, oh, this is insulting me. Not really. You can actually hear it, So anyway, I'm convinced that what Prabhupada is giving is, there's a reason why this specific, well, why Srila Prabhupada specifically, and why, like Lord Krishna in the form of Srila Prabhupada's books and movement has spread all over the world the way it has. So many people like come through ISKCON and learn about Krishna and just basic, like Indian culture, and then they'll they might find their heart somewhere else, like, oh, Gaudiya Math or something, or even something completely different, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just making the point that, well, I'm just sharing that I have the conviction that there's a specific reason why this particular mood, brand, you know, of Krishna consciousness has spread the way it has. And yeah, I'm convinced there's so many nice things out there. Even spiritual things. It's not like we have the only spiritual thing. But I'm convinced there's no flavor quite like you know the Krishna consciousness following the Prabhupada Nugas, following Prabhupada. Yeah, and the more time goes on, the more it's just like, yeah, like, yep, I'm good right here. I mean, I'm not. I mean, I have work to do still, but I feel. I remember one time during John Mashtami several years ago. I used to make hip hop beats. Actually, I still do. Well, sort of, not that much, but I still do a little bit. And I made some beats, and we had this Bhakta Michael, and Bhakta Michael was into rapping, and I dabbled with it. So we wrote 3 rap songs, and we performed them on John Mashtami in New Vrindavan in front of a packed full temple room. And there's a video of it on YouTube. And one of the lyrics, let me try to remember it. Uh, anyway, I said, anyway, one thing I said was, now I'm taking shelter in the supreme nest. You get nestled in. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. But yeah, it's like, Anyway, just appreciating what we have. Devotees should not. Actually, we just read the other day, a devotee never finds fault with anyone. And Prabhupada doesn't find fault with people, but he'll cut through, ideas. People take it personally, like he's cutting them. I seen this one lady. She was very attached to, her impersonal ideas, and she thinks she's very, very smart and stuff. And I seen a senior devotee very kindly just inform her of, like kind of how the conception was incomplete or something, and propose this idea of whatever he was preaching. It was just trying to help her understand, and she got offended, and then she went on a big crusade accusing him of things, and um, um, deformation of character, and all kinds of stuff, just because he tried to correct her, even kindly. That's how false ego is. Yeah. If people come and then they're kind of curious maybe, or for whatever reason they come, and then they hear a little bit, and then they get mad at you. But Prabhupada's not insulting anyone. I mean, if you read, when I hear this, I'm hearing basically the highest culture of love and respect for all living entities, beyond even human beings. So, Atmavan Manyate Jagat, yeah. We look at things and view the, Atmavan, like myself, Manyate, I think, Jagat, the whole universe. Yeah. We got some dust on the mirror of the heart. If your mirror is covered with dust and toothpaste spots and all kinds of stuff, then if you look in the mirror, then you're gonna see you can look really ugly. It's yes, not exactly. The world looks really ugly to people. Yeah. And even someone trying to do good to them looks ugly to them because of the dust on the heart. Yeah. Yeah. And then it also beckons us as practitioners to really clean our own mirror so we can see clearly and help others. Yeah. Yeah. Any other points? Doubts? Is there any doubts about anything? Anything from ecology again? I don't want it to end.
Hey, I'm just grateful for the association.
Yeah.
Nice points.
We're
Thank
grateful for yours, Prabhuji.
you. And again, happy to hear, and happy you all are chanting on there. It's awesome.
Jai. Ear to hear, from ear to ear.
I'm
Oh,
smiling. Haribol.
Hannibal.
Hare Krishna.
Now, glories to Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Hey.
Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai.
Yay.
Alright, thank you very much. We'll see everyone tomorrow, Krishna willing. Hare Krishna.